Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. What is up? I hope y'all are all doing well. And, of course, we are going to read another story, another fairy tale. This one is Sleeping Beauty by Charles Perrault. I hope I'm saying that right. Let me find it. Yeah, here it is. Sleeping Beauty. So, this one is certainly interesting, and I feel like when I finish it, it leaves me with lots of questions. But without further ado, let's get started. A king and queen who had hoped for a child for many years at last had a beautiful baby daughter. They planned a lavish christening and invited the 7 fairies of the kingdom. Each fairy would bestow a wonderful gift upon the princess to give her the best qualities imaginable, and each would receive a chest of gold in thanks. Once the christening ceremony was complete, every guest joined the king, the queen, and the princess at their palace for an enormous celebration feast. The table was set with the finest crystal goblets, golden plates, and jewel-encrusted silverware. Everyone chattered excitedly to see it. Suddenly, there was a gasp. The whole hall quieted, turning to see what had caused such alarm. In the entrance was a small, wizened old fairy. Everyone had thought she was dead, so she hadn't been invited. The king hastily ordered an extra plate for her, but as there was not an 8th chest of gold prepared, the fairy scowled in resentment. Seated close by, a good fairy overheard the miserable creature muttering her indignation under her breath. The good fairy decided to hang back as the others lined up to present their gifts. She cleverly hid herself behind a tapestry so that she would be certain to see the princess last. The first fairy took her place in front of the princess's crib and gave her the gift of beauty. The next gave her wit and laughter. The third, gracefulness. The fourth gave the gift of wonderful dancing. The fifth chose for the princess to sing like an angel, and the sixth gave the gift of incredible musical talent. While the good fairy remained hidden, the old fairy took her place at the crib. With a venomous look at the king and queen, she announced, "I give the princess the gift of a short life. She will prick her finger on a spindle and die." As the old fairy swept from the hall, everyone began wailing and weeping. The good fairy was ready. She revealed herself at once and said in a strong voice, "I cannot do what has been done. I can only help the best I can. When the princess pricks her finger, she will not die. Instead, she will fall into the deepest sleep imaginable. Her sleep will last 100 years until a prince comes to wake her with a kiss. This is my gift." So that the princess could avoid such a terrible fate, a proclamation was made across the land that every spindle should be destroyed. For 16 years, the king, the queen, and the princess lived joyful lives. The princess did not so much as graze a knee or stub a toe as she grew, and never saw so much as a needle and thread, let alone a spindle. Eventually, the king and queen felt reassured that all would be well for their daughter, and they felt safe enough to leave her for a few days. Having never been allowed to wander alone before, the excited princess explored the palace. She climbed to the highest tower, where she came upon a tiny room in which an old servant sat at a spinning wheel and spindle. The servant knew nothing of the proclamation and didn't even know who the princess was. She smiled and offered to show the princess how the spindle worked. The princess reached out, and just as the old fairy had said, pricked her finger on the spindle's point. She slumped to the ground at once and fell into the deepest sleep imaginable. The old woman rushed for help, and the palace's servants tried all they could to awaken the princess, but nothing worked. Returning to the palace, the king and queen came upon such noise and chaos that they knew at once that something terrible had happened. Their daughter was carried to the finest room and laid on the most comfortable bed to be found. The good fairy soon heard of the princess's fate and rushed to the palace. Knowing that a century later the princess would find herself amongst strangers, the fairy decided then and there that the whole palace should sleep until the princess awoke. A proclamation was sent out that no one should come near the palace, and as silence fell, a circle of trees rose up around it. Soon the palace could not be seen at all. 100 years passed by, and memories faded. One day a young prince, hunting in the forest, rode by and spotted the palace's towers rising up through the trees. He asked who lived there. Some people thought that the tangle of trees hid a ruined castle, others that an ogre lived there. One man, having lived a long time, told the prince the story of the beautiful princess who slept in the palace beyond the trees. It was said that she had been enchanted by a fairy to sleep for 100 years. Being an adventurous young man, the prince decided to explore. As he approached, the tangle of trees magically parted to allow him through. What he saw inside the palace almost stopped him in his tracks, for all around were the softly breathing statues of people and animals, frozen in a moment a century old. But the prince was young and valiant. He strode forward in search of the princess, crossing the courtyard and climbing the palace's grand staircase. Soon he came to a large room. garlanded with flowers. In the center of it stood a bed, and on it lay a beautiful young princess, sleeping peacefully. The prince fell to his knees at her side and leaned forward to kiss her. At his kiss, the enchantment was lifted at last. The princess's eyes fluttered open to see the handsome young prince by her side. "I'm so glad you have come," she sighed. The prince and princess instantly fell. Sorry. My book. Okay, sorry. The prince and princess fell instantly in love, and the servants, newly awoken, began to arrange a lavish wedding ceremony to be held that evening. The whole palace rejoiced, and the feast was the most extraordinary the kingdom had ever seen. Though it had been 100 years since they had played, the palace musicians put on a grand performance, and everyone danced into the night. The end. So, I definitely have a couple of thoughts on this story. So, first off, what's up with this fairy, okay? Like, I'm sorry, but if everyone's thinking that you're dead, maybe you need to, get out in society more, lady. And this is coming from, an introvert who never leaves her house that much anyways. Yeah, what the, and then, also, why do they need, I'm assuming, just, based off of the context clues, that the king and queen have so much money, why do they need to, prepare a chest? Can't you just, give her gold? I mean, maybe she'll have a hard time carrying it, I guess. I don't really know. Also, I guess I shouldn't be questioning the good fairy's magic, because it's magic, and I guess she would just, if that's the best that she can do is to make someone sleep for 100 years instead of just, a little while, and also be woken by a kiss instead of, something else, no, I guess that's the best you can do. I don't know, it's magic. Still a bit weird, though. And then, also, I'm concerned about the servant, knowing nothing of this princess at all, or anything that had happened, even though she's clearly, around. That's concerning, not gonna lie. And also, that must have been terrifying. You were just trying to teach someone how to, use this, spindle or whatever, and she pricks her finger and just collapses. I would, I don't know what I would do. I think I would have totally panicked. Yeah. And then, 100 years later, I'm concerned about this prince also. Well, first of all, if I had walked into a castle and saw everything sleeping and just all around me, there's just sleeping bodies, I think I would have ran and never looked back. But I mean, I guess he's young and valiant, so yeah. And then I'm still conflicted about him just kissing the princess. Either because I can't tell if the magic made him do that. If another man came there and kissed her, is it just would that have happened? Is he being enchanted by the magic to do this, or is he making this decision to see? He sees a sleeping princess, and the first thing he thinks to do is to kiss her. because if that's the case, then it's weird. And then like she just wakes up and sees a man by her bedside. I would have probably like gut punched anyone any stranger that is just by my side when I wake up. And especially if they had just kissed me in my sleep. But apparently she instantly loves him, which that was not in the enchantment, I don't think. So that was just a decision, I guess. And then like they get married the evening that she wakes up 100 years later. I mean, maybe she was just like so like flabbergasted that like she panicked and married someone. I don't know. I feel like if I had been sleeping for 100 years and I woke up, I would need quite a long time to get my bearings. I'd probably have to take like a bit of history lessons, maybe just have some time to reflect on how much I've missed. But yeah, maybe she just panicked and married this man. Or maybe I don't know. Probably I'm over analyzing this or overthinking it way too much. But that is what I have to say, honestly. It was an enjoyable read, even though it is quite strange. But let me know. Ow. Okay, sorry. Let me know what y'all thought. The next video will be about the wild swans. I don't know if I remember that one, actually. I've read this book before. So, I've definitely read this story, but I don't remember much about, like, I know, like, what the story is about, I guess, but I don't really remember much, like, of, like, the details or whatever. I feel like that's one of the stories in here that I remember the least. I kind of just, like, read it once, because, like, there's a table of contents in this, and sometimes I'll just go in and read a random one, and I feel like I never really revisited this one after the first time I read it. Because there's some that I like to read quite a bit. But anyways, that's all for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I certainly did. And I hope that you'll come back for my next video. But bye for now.